You're listening to Lemmon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Welcome to this episode of Lemmon's Listening Library. I am Randie Lemons, fantasy author See, we mess up all the time on here. It's fine.
Every time.
R.L. Rose. I know. I can never get the R.L. Rose. I don't know why I did that to myself. All right, let's restart that little section. I am Randie Lemons, fantasy author, or R.L. Rose to those of you in the romance community. Today, I have my wonderful Cathy on. Cathy, please tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hey, y'all. I'm Cathy Ireland. I have a business called Phoenix Audio Productions, and I manage audio production for authors. So I find the amazing narrator to go with your character, do all the comms, just manage the whole thing so it's easy for the narrator and easy for the author. So that's what I do.
I think that makes you a professional cat-cruiter. Is that what that makes it?
Yep, that sums it up pretty quick. But I mean, it takes a lot of effort off you, and it makes sure that your books come out squeaky clean, and it's such a good service. All right, guys, you guys heard our guest a little bit there, so we're going to hint at who she is. We're not going to show you who she is until a few more minutes. I got to do a little bit of housekeeping. Oops. All right, I want to remind all of our listeners to head over to YouTube channel, comment on each episode that you've listened to, and review us on your chosen podcast platform. We are on all of them. It is one of the most helpful ways you can support our show, and it goes a long way to get us to readers like you. We also have an advertising spot available to where we will create a commercial for you and broadcast them across all of our social media platforms, as well as give you the commercial to use however you want to. If you want information on this, email us at lemonslisteninglibrary@gmail.com and we'll get you hooked up on that. Lastly, go follow us on all of our social media platforms. Again, you can find us at Lemmon's Listening Library. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, we would like to welcome the brilliant Lucy Rivers. Lucy, can you please tell our listeners about yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Lucy Rivers. I narrate romance from sweet small town to dark and twisty and everything in between. Trust me, at this point, I think we're close to everything, which I really love. I've narrated close to 400 titles. I think we're coming up on 400 soon. Won some awards. I love romance. I love love. I love narrating. And other than that, I ride a motorcycle. I'm obsessed with tamales and walking my dog. I think that's the important facts.
Right? Tamales.
Sounds like it.
Obsessed.
Do you make them?
I have made them, but mine are not the best I've ever eaten. Let's just be honest about that.
Gotcha.
I'm working on it, but
Nice. You're good at eating humble pie, then.
I'm good at acknowledging my strengths and my weaknesses. Yeah, for sure.
That's good.
That's amazing.
So you grew up in Idaho and trained in classical acting. What does that look like?
That looks like I was the weirdo small town kid who was obsessed with books and drama. I was definitely that kid. I went to the library twice a week with my mom, and we would take out a billion books, and I would read a billion books. And it was my way of escaping small town farm life, which is a beautiful life to have, but sometimes you need to run away from it. And then I started doing kind of theater at school and community theater in high school. And I, very boldly tried to audition for the Royal Shakespeare Company as a 15-year-old who knew nothing. Guys, I made like a VHS tape and mailed it to London. I assume whoever got that just had a good laugh and was like, "Oh, what a cute kid. Good job, kiddo."
Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. It was definitely like, in retrospect, a bless her heart moment. And then I went to undergrad and I studied theater and classics. I spent 4 years also studying Latin and Roman and Greek mythology, and ended up at grad school at a school that really emphasized Shakespeare. And so I did 3 years of MFA training in Shakespeare specifically. And then, of course, got out of school and realized you can't make a living doing Shakespeare. That's not a thing, which they don't tell you that when you're going to school to be a Shakespeare actor. And then you're like, oh, well, I guess I better figure that out. So here I am.
Was that kind of like a punch in the gut of like all of this time feels a little bit wasted now?
It definitely, there was definitely a wake up call coming out of school and moving to New York City, and really was like, I'm going to make it as an actor. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, all these things I've spent 7 years of my life training for are maybe not useful in the way I thought they would be. They're not, not wasted time or wasted training, but certainly maybe not useful in the way I thought it would be. I was like, I'm going to make a lot more money selling toilet paper in a commercial. Cool. Now I know that.
Was that your transition from that to trickling into, did you do commercials?
I did a lot of VO for commercials and some video games and things like that. And that did kind of lead me down the path to audiobooks eventually. Yeah.
How was the video games? Because I imagine that's a lot of like, like.
Yeah. And specifically for me, I'm sorry, I'm going to put my thing on Do Not Disturb because it's making noise. Go away. I ended up specializing, surprisingly or not, apparently, in playing prostitutes on video games. So I did Grand Theft Auto. Got to make the murder noises because they like to murder the prostitutes in that game, as well as throw them out of the car, that kind of thing. And then I did the first Red Dead Redemption, and I was like a Texas madam, doing a little.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my God. I've heard your voice before I even realized, because I played Grand Theft Auto so.
Grand Theft Auto 4 specifically was mine. And then the first Red Dead.
Yep, I played that.
Yeah, there you go. Before you even knew, you were probably beating me up and throwing me out of the
ran
car
your voiceover.
Yeah.
So was that kind of your first intro into like the like sultry voice? Well, I guess that's really, you're not really getting too sultry there. You're not really getting into it, but it is kind of like an idea of you voicing something more sexualized.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm trying to think if that's my first time kind of dipping into that. It may have been actually. But certainly never with like, I'm going to come in here and sound like Marilyn Monroe or something, because you're going to get beat up and you're screaming and it's, so it's less sexy somehow, I think, but fun. It was a good time. I really enjoyed doing the video game stuff. And I still do a little bit of like, I'll do some podcasts that are kind of more stories and theatrical that way. And it's really fun. I really enjoy that kind of work.
Like the podcasts are like doing kind of like theatrical, like you read a line kind of situation.
Yeah, it's there's a playwright from New York that I worked with years ago we're on season 3 of his podcast called The Land Whale Murders, and it's written much more like a play. So it's dialogue and back and forth and a lot of sound effects and a lot of getting beat up and making the noises and all of that. And it's very fun. I enjoy it. Really enjoy it.
That's cool. Can you name drop that? Can we know where to listen to that?
Oh, I think it's kind of everywhere. It's called The Land Whale Murders. It's a weird title, so I should be, Whales on Land, The Land Whale Murders. And it's all set in New York in kind of the 1920s with, Teddy Roosevelt, and sort of that's the energy of it. But it's very kooky, very funny, historical comedy. And I think you can find it anywhere, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anything like that.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yes.
So how did you get into narration?
Oh, how did I get into narration? Good question. I was doing a lot of commercial VO in New York City and doing a lot of literally selling paint and toilet paper and whatever else for commercials, which was really fun. And I just had a friend who was like, I think you'd be really great at audiobooks. I'm going to set you up with a meeting with Mike Charzik, who runs Audible. And I lucked out on the timing. It was kind of right as the iPhone came out, which changed audiobook world forever, because all of a sudden you didn't have to carry around these boxes of CDs or tapes. You could just have, a whole library on your teeny tiny little phone. So all of a sudden they were like, audiobooks exploded. They were putting everything into audio, so I hit it right at that time. And I just went out to New Jersey to the Audible offices, and I walked in, and Mike Charzik sat down at his desk with me, and he handed me 2 sides. One was a nonfiction about the universe and planets and everything, and the other was a romance, and it was like the meet cute scene of the guy and the girl. And I read them for him at his desk, and he was like, great, we'll see you next week. I have a book for you. And it was a romance book. So it just kind of all cascaded from there, and was, I think, a bunch of luck and timing, as so many things are in life,
Did you walk in thinking like, this is it? This is going to be the moment that kind of changes my life?
No, not at all. I was like, oh yeah, that'd be fun. I like books. I'll go read a book. How fun would that be? And here we are, 14 years later or whatever it is, still doing romance novels.
Do you remember the name of that first book?
I want to say it's Dr. Box or something. I'll have to look it up for you. It was a quirky, offbeat romance with kind of the lead male was a doctor, but he was not a good guy. That's what I remember. This is 14 years ago. It's definitely way back in my memory.
Was there ever a moment that made you that you were thinking like, I feel like this audiobook path wasn't the path I was going, and were you ever like sort of bummed with like this isn't what I planned on doing, or was it more excitement because you were the book kid?
So I think probably a bit of both. I don't know if bummed is right, but I definitely had not foreseen that this is where I would end up necessarily. I was doing a lot of theater in New York, and then I moved to LA and I was doing TV and film, and that was certainly my focus, and the audiobooks were kind of a fun thing that I was doing on the side, which made my little bookish child heart happy. And then all of a sudden they became the thing that I was doing basically full time, which has been lovely and something I did not foresee coming. And I just leaned in because it was working and I enjoyed it. So I haven't been on TV for a while as a result, I suppose.
Do you miss it or like have the urge to do act like with people watching you like that?
I mean, there are times when I miss the collaboration of doing theater or a TV thing, because it is often us in a little box talking to ourselves doing audiobooks, which is really fun. You get to play all the characters, but it can be a little isolating compared to the rest of it. So I sometimes miss the collaboration, but I don't miss, I don't know. I love what I do. So I have no regrets, I guess is what I would say. I have no regrets.
I love that life kind of showed you this path of like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And it just kind of worked out in a way. It sounds like all aspects of like, this was what you were meant to be doing and you enjoy it, maybe even more than what you would have in the other areas.
Yeah. I mean, I love what I do and I get to read every day. And I'm like, that's amazing. So, but yes, it was an unexpected, didn't see that coming. It was a bit of a left turn at Albuquerque and hey, I'm all good with that.
You mentioned, sorry, Cathy, do you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned that you had a life-threatening illness in your late teens. Do you mind opening up and kind of sharing about like how that experience shifted your viewpoint on like world life stuff and just your trajectory, your path?
Trajectory. You got there. It was beautiful. It's lovely.
I will never be a narrator.
Well, sometimes I stumble over things and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this sentence for the 15th time. Here we go. Because for whatever reason, those letters in that order just are really hard for my brain. Yes. Yeah. And you're R.L. Rose or L.R. Rose?
Yeah, so my name is Randie Lemons, but then my romance name is R.L. Rose.
Yeah, that's hard. Like I would be,
but it changes on which.
Yeah, it might just be a R.L.
Rose. And then you turn into Elmer Fudd or something, and it's like that happens to me all the time. Where all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you just Elmer Fudded. You got to go back. You just, your brain broke.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I in my late teens, it was my junior year of high school. I ended up with just a freak series of things that kind of landed on top of each other. And I ended up in the ICU for about a week with a blood clot in my brain. And I had like experimental drugs and all of this stuff, getting it cleared out, and definitely came closer to dying than I had realized. I did not realize until after the fact when I kind of overheard my doctor talking to my mother when they thought I was asleep. And I was like, oh, we got real close, y'all. That's crazy. And I do think it, as it maybe would inevitably to anyone, changed how I went through life. I certainly came out of it more risk prone, I guess. I became that kid who was like, you can literally die at any time, which I don't think you think about when you're 17 very often. And so I just became that person who really was like, I'm going to say yes. And I still am that person where I often will say yes to things that I don't fully think through. I just want to try it. I just want to take a leap. I'm just going to go for it. I certainly have taken risks that I don't know if I would have taken, both physically and like with my life that I don't know if I would have taken had I not had that experience. So whether that's good or bad, I don't know. My parents might tell you it was a bad thing that I came out of it being like, I'm just gonna jump.
Yeah, they watch their daughter go through this horrifying, very scary thing for them, and then they're like, oh, we have Evel Knievel, what the hell?
That's basically what they got out of it. They got a motorcycle riding, mountain climbing, like just jumping out of airplanes kid. And I'm sure they were like, really? Shouldn't you have learned the other lesson and like be safer? But no.
Yeah.
Quick side note: I am distantly related to the Knievel family.
Are you really?
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you ever get to go to watch like a live jump? Because that would be cool.
No, like one of like Evel Knievel, like one of his cousins. I don't even know how like it all ended because I was pretty little when I found this out. But they lived. I also grew up in a very small town, ranching community. Everybody knows everybody. You know how that goes. And so yeah, we were distantly related to them. So it was kind of cool.
Did you brag about that as a kid? Were you like at school and you're like, look, man, I'm
Knievel, so as a kid, yes, but then as I got into my teenage years, Cathy Ireland, which is my real name, like that's my maiden name.
Oh yes, you got the
overshadowed everything.
Oh, you got the whole model thing going on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which was not fun. That was not fun.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah. Is it more fun as you got older?
Yeah, because now people remember me.
Yeah.
Like in the business world, people don't forget me.
Yeah.
So, and hell yes, I take advantage of that all the time.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, as a teenager, it's so funny. Not so cool. But like as an adult, you're like, yeah, I'm Cathy Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. I had one guy, it was, I don't know, maybe about a year ago. I had emailed him because I do collections, accounts receivable for a corporation. And I was working for a company and I emailed a guy, who they owed money or whatever. Not a big deal. And he emailed me back. He goes, I literally had to call my friend and tell him that I got an email from Cathy.
Now pay your bill.
Now pay your bill. You're welcome. Pay your bill. Thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. Oh man, that's so funny. That's cool, Cathy. I didn't know that about the Evel Knievel thing.
Yep. I was going to ask you, Lucy, so like what was probably, or what has been so far, like the most dramatic risk you've taken? What's the riskiest risk?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
We're about to hear some college years stuff, aren't we?
I've definitely done things where you're like, how are you alive this morning? How did you get home? Wasn't that interesting?
It's called experiencing life,
you
guys.
You don't remember, do you?
You want to know why I sound so authentic when I read those crazy parts in my books?
Yeah, because I've done it. Been there, done that. Yeah, I mean, I've done some like physically risky things in terms of I hike mountains around the world for fun. That's what I do from my great love in life. And I've certainly done some of those hikes on days that were very questionable in terms of like, we're at 15,000 feet in the middle of a lightning storm, which we probably shouldn't have been. And we did it anyway. So I've definitely done some things like that. And then there's the other kind of risks where, I chose to make a life in the arts, which is its own risk. And there are definitely days where you're like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever done. And some days where you're like, God, I wish I just had a paycheck and like a normal
ice cubes and bread again.
So no, I don't know. It's its own risk is to decide I'm going to go off and build a life in the arts. Certainly my parents still to this day ask me at least every 6 months, so when are you going to start teaching? I'm like, oh, God bless. Probably never, but thanks for asking.
Right.
It's something you understand and it makes sense to you and has a steady, okay. Yeah. So
yeah.
Different kind of risk, I guess.
I feel like the SAG-AFTRA, like the union takes good care of the narrators. They really good care of the narrators.
It certainly helps that you can get insurance and there are kind of minimums and all of that, but it's still a contract gig working lifestyle where you can have months that are very slow and you're just like, oh God, I got to pay my bills like everyone else. And how is this all going to work out? And you're constantly working on connections and brands. And, like indie authors, I have so much respect for indie authors. It really is like, yeah, there's the writing the book, and then there's the rest of the business. So there's the narrating the book, and then there's everything else that goes around it. So the union is helpful for sure, but they don't get you work. They don't help you land jobs. That's your own thing.
No, yeah, for sure.
I want to go back for a minute. Okay, you said you hike all these crazy places. Do you do it by yourself, or do you typically go with like a group?
I have one girlfriend in particular that she and I have done all of our hikes together. So we're going on 15 or 16 years. Our first one was Kilimanjaro. Our most recent one was the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. And one of my favorite things about this particular girlfriend is she is 30 years older than I am or something. So she just turned 71 and she is still kicking my ass up those mountains. And I'm just like, we're going to do this till we can't do it. Here we go. You know? So we'll see.
That is
We're
awesome.
hoping for
That is amazing.
Yeah. She's amazing. She never ceases to astound me. She's just like running up a mountain. I'm like, Jesus, you're 72. You're killing.
Do you feel like you kind of attract those people in your life, kind of like someone that reflects a lot of your like, let's just live life to the fullest?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have a couple of very close girlfriends, and I would say most of them live in that lifestyle where it is, we have this one short precious life kind of idea, and we better make the best of it. And I'm going to be happy if I go over the finish line worn out, my body's broken, and I really did it. You know, I really did it. So that's definitely people around me, I think, have the same attitude.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. That's definitely, I don't know if you know Enneagram types, but I'm a type 7. And so that is like, I love all the adventure. If I hear there's stuff going on in the town over, I'm like, I need to be there. So I've been wanting to hike, but right now I don't have anyone to go with me, and I'm like, I could do it alone. I don't think I could do it alone. I think I'd get out there and it'd be like 2:00 in the morning. I'd be like, I would lose my mind with thinking there's stuff around me, and yeah.
It is nice to have a buddy. It's also like someone who pushes you, or the day that you're just tired, they're like, come on, kid, here we go. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. You're myself out of here.
Yeah, it is nice to have a buddy, for sure.
I find it very interesting. Have you run into like what's the scariest wildlife that you've run into on these hikes?
I've definitely run into some black bears. I've never had a grizzly. So black bears for sure. The occasional moose, which I know sounds ridiculous, but moose are very grumpy and mean, and they will
very aggressive.
They are very aggressive. I usually am like, oh God, that's a moose. Run, run! Go the other way! And in Africa, I went on safari after we did Kilimanjaro, and they said the same thing about water buffalo. They were like, everyone's worried about the leopards and the lions and the whatever, but more people die every year from grumpy water buffalo than any other animal in Africa.
Crazy.
They just have big attitudes and big horns, and they are ready to express that. That's you know? Yeah. And then I regularly see rattlesnakes, which I know are not like the biggest ones, but every time it happens, like your heart stops for just a second where you're like, oh, okay, I didn't get bitten. Go around it. It's okay, because they're not aggressive and they just want to be left alone. But every single time my heart does a little.
I hate snakes.
Yeah, I was about to say, it wouldn't have to be just a rattlesnake for me. It could be a little gardener snake, and I'd be like, I'm out. Bye, guys.
Yeah, I don't mind the non-poisonous ones, but the poisonous ones are always like, okay.
I'm getting there. We had a hognose and it was I used to never like snakes, but hognoses are the cutest snake in the entire world, and they roll over on their back and they act like they're dead. And I'm like, this is my snake. This is my spirit animal as a snake.
It's your snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting to where I'm like, okay, maybe they're not all ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't. I'm not going to have one in my house at any time soon. I don't mind the
No.
but I also like the
Ever.
that have them as pets. I'm like, that is a very specific kind of person. When you have a pet. My pets are all like furry and cuddly and warm.
And cuddly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to do sacrifices every day to feed them.
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh. So I love the idea of like you live this very full and wonderful life, and then you read these very full and spectacular books. Like I imagine that's also how some people have a great work life, but then they have a crappy home life, or they have a crappy home life and they have a great work life. Like you've got both of it.
Yeah, I win. I think it's pretty great. Yes, it is.
And the winner is.
I mean, they do say that if you read a book, it is essentially like you have experienced it. It's the way that so many of us get to experience things that we will never get to experience, whether that's falling in love with 20 different people or traveling to different places or living, a different life and a different job. And so I do feel very lucky that I get to every day kind of live a life that's not my own. It's amazing. That will never be my life, but I feel like I have lived a lot of them. So I win. I think I win.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
What is your favorite trope or genre or whatever to narrate?
Come on, that's so. It's like Sophie's Choice, man. God. What is my favorite? I do love straight up rom-com. I like it when I get to like lean into my Lucille Ball. I'm a big fan of physical comedy, and writers who can do that well in books is always like, it just makes my heart happy. I definitely was a fantasy kid growing up, and I still love fantasy and romantasy. That's definitely like one of my happy spots, one of my sweet spots.
Same.
And probably because I grew up in a tiny town in Idaho, those small town things, they always sucker punch me. Like I'm like, da 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 da, having a good time.
And we know it's coming too.
You know it's coming, and every time it just is like, come on. It just sucker punches me every time. It gets me every time.
I love those because they're like Hallmark with spice.
Hallmark with spice. And sometimes like, you get some really like complex characters and like some really great storytelling, but then there is all that small town stuff that is just real. Like everybody knows everybody knows everybody's shit, everybody's dated everybody, like all that is real.
So real.
So real.
I think that's one of my favorite things about books, though, is like, oh yeah, that's so relatable. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I have to go through. Like when people can make it feel personable and relatable, especially when the authors make it, like you said, complex, it just hits that sweet spot so good.
Yeah. I think that's like when you could tell a great fantasy writer is you've built a world that literally doesn't exist, but if you've built characters that are really in depth and real and fleshed out, we know those people, we are those people, and so we get to go experience this world that has never existed through the eyes of someone who feels familiar. Like that's what I love about a great fantasy book too, is you're like, oh cool, we're in like, there's dragons, there's magic, there's whatever's going on, this is a whole new world, but I know these people, I know how these people function, and that's my in. So
yeah. So you growing up reading fantasy, there wasn't like romance was more of an undercurrent in a lot of the fantasy before. So when romantasy came and started becoming big, how excited were you for that?
Super excited. I guess I just didn't. I like you had kind of always associated fantasies, generally speaking, with romance. Not all fantasy. So romantasy, I was like, wait, that's already. I mean, that's what I grew up on. Like, that's a thing, right? I grew up reading Mercedes Lackey, and I would say all of her stuff is arguably romantasy, right?
Yeah.
And who did? Oh, the Dragon Riders of Pern. Who did all the Pern?
Oh, McCaffrey, Anne McCaffrey.
Yeah, well, her stuff is like. I started reading those books because my librarian gave them to me as a fifth grader because I was reading really high above my grade level, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, cool dragons, sex! There's sex in here. What? Whoa!" I was like, "Cool! This my librarian gave this to me, and my mom didn't think anything of it because there's just dragons on the front. So what does she know? She doesn't care." And I'm over here like, "What?" And then they put what where? Oh my god! Eye-opening as a young kid. Eye-opening as a young kid.
Yeah, she got away with a lot of stuff for YA middle grade kids.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And I don't think any of the parents realized it at all. No. So yeah, I'm
It's okay.
thrilled romantasy is having like a moment and maybe ushering a whole new generation into these worlds that we love. So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so funny, like the big boom about romantasy, because everyone before is like, no, Lord of the Rings, no, this. I'm like, you realize there was a love story in Lord of the Rings too, right? Like there's the undercurrent typically in everything. It's just not always in every chapter.
And I think underpinning almost every story is a love story. I know romance gets this like weird judgment from the world, and I'm like, almost every great novel throughout history is a love story. Or there's a love
Yeah,
story.
that war that they're fighting because they are fighting over a woman. Like,
yeah, and because it's like it is one of the greatest things about being human is experiencing love, and it is one of the things that we fight for and care about. And I'm just like, why does romance
Yeah.
have such a hard fucking time, y'all? Come on. It's like
yeah,
romance makes the world go. Love makes the world go.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of the judgment, I just don't understand. Like those people often turn to for their, like like it's going to be some kind of romance movie or,
Fantasy, Game of
something.
Thrones, something, and you're like, that's all in there too, guys. It's all in there. I don't know what
yeah.
a romance novel, when it's really well written, it's just a novel where they end up together. I mean, doesn't have to just be, anyway.
Yeah, John Wick. That was a
It's a
romance
romance
movie. I know
movie.
that was all a bunch of badass stuff, but he's doing all that because of love.
Yeah, he destroys the world because of his dead wife and then the dog, and then you're like, yeah, that's a romance. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And
Can't go
Keanu
wrong with him.
we're all in love with Keanu Reeves. Oh,
Right?
we are. He's such a just
Our own separate romances.
right. It is a romance. We're having a romance right now with John Wick as
Right.
yes. Yeah.
I think that's another really cool aspect of romance and, connecting with characters is like when we read these characters, we personally connect with them on a level. Like, how some people just hate one character and then other people love this other character. And then, another person loves that character that you hate. We all connect with them differently. And I think that that's so beautiful because, like, the book boyfriends are real and it's okay. And, the book best friends that you wish you had in your life, it's okay.
It is. And again, it's like we're reading books to bring in other experiences and then you bring your own experience to it, which is why we have our own where you're like, oh God, I hate that because she reminds me of that person from 5th grade who was mean to me and bullied me. And no. We all bring our own baggage to the story, which is why it's great. And we're all working through our own baggage in these stories. Like I went through a divorce in the middle of my romance career, and there were definitely books where I was like, well, we're just going to work some of this out, aren't we? We're just going to work some of this out. We're doing therapy over here. But in a good way, all good stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And not just like even romance stuff, but I told the story before, but when my dad passed away, I had re-listened to He's Not My Type, which is a rom-com. Connor Price was the main narrator. It's a full cast. But they deal so beautifully with some issues in there that just allows you to get into the characters' emotions and separate yourself from your emotions. Then you can process that.
Yeah.
Once like it just gives you a little bit of separation. Like I love when a book can do that.
I do too. I love it when a book can bring something up that I was like, oh, you haven't thought about that in 5 years. And now's the time to think about that. And where are you now versus where were you 5 years ago, right? Like I love it when a book taps into some part of yourself that you're like, I guess I should revisit that. Have I gotten better? Have I grown up? Am I changing? Where am I with that? I love those moments where you get to get into a story and love that, but also truly be processing your own life experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I personally feel that the narrators are super instrumental in allowing that space, because it really does bring the book to life. The narrators do. And I love how a narrator can make a good book, even a great book, fucking phenomenal. Like it gets me every time.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't.
Okay, and we're going to talk about a book that the narrators did that for me, because I don't do like scary thriller kind of shit. Like, no, that's not me. And I live alone, and my imagination can go crazy. And so when I was first encouraged to what was part of a book club book, Butcher and Blackbird, I was like, fuck no, thank you very much. And then I was like, oh wait, but Lucy and Joe are narrating it. Okay, I'll give it a try. And oh my God, Lucy, for fuck's sake, that was so freaking good. I love that. I don't like cookies and cream ice cream anymore, but I do love what you guys did. Truly one of the best narrations of last year, I think. And I listened to a lot of books.
Well, we got lucky on that one in terms of it was pretty special. Both the book was really special, but Blue Nose opted to fly me out so that he and I could record live together. So we were in the same room in separate booths. So we were in separate booths, obviously, for sound reasons. But in the same room and could really just play off each other, which is what helped that comedy and the timing and all of that. And he and I had talked a little bit beforehand after we prepped and everything, and we talked about the tone, because we knew it's obviously a dark book, but it's a dark rom-com, like, and it is quirky, yes, and it's funny, and there's like some Lucille Ball and some Monty Python. It's like there's all of that kind of energy in it. So we had talked ahead of time, and we're like, we're gonna just dig into that energy and feel free to play and like throw things in with each other. And if it sucks, we stop, we go back, we fix it, we like mess with it. So I think we got very, very lucky in terms of that was a great book. And also I got spoiled because I got to go out and he and I just got to play together in real time, which doesn't always happen. Yeah. Super, super fun.
That was really amazing. And I recommend it to like so many people. Reading it is one thing, but I swear with that book, you have to listen to the audio. You absolutely have to listen to the audio on it. It was so well done. So much fun.
So much fun. And I feel like, I don't know, it feels like since that book has come out, I'm doing more and more duets. So I don't know if that's what's happening. I don't know if there's just like a shift kind of going on in the industry, but I feel like I'm getting more and more duet, which is really fun. It's a kind of
I think that the duet is becoming more like the readers are wanting duet more, so the demand for that, I think, is increasing.
Yeah,
it makes it a little bit difficult on the authors because it's expensive.
Yeah,
to do that.
Yeah, it's a more expensive way to do it. And I think, I don't know, I think any version can work. It really just depends on the book. Like I still enjoy romances that are third person, that have one narrator all the way through, actually doing kind of both POVs. I really enjoy that as a listener because you do get such a consistent through line, because you have one person taking you through this whole story and through the whole arc. And a great duel works just, I really don't, I don't know. It just is whatever the book is. Butcher and Blackbird really worked in duet because of the comedy, I think. That's part of what really made it come alive. In that duet form is because you can really banter and go back and forth. So, yeah.
That was fun. The 2 or 3 page trigger warnings that y'all read were hilarious. But one was left out, and I was a little bit miffed about it. I just want you to know.
What's it leave out?
Vomiting noises. Oh, and holy shit. It was real. I don't know how he did that, but it was so gross. I can handle, we're going to eat somebody's whatever. Fine. That's fine. I can handle that. Oh, we're going to like scoop somebody's eyeball. Okay, that's fine. I can do that too. But somebody starts puking, I'm out.
Ah,
I
I see. That was your hard line. That was it.
Trigger warning should have been first.
Noted. I'll try not to add vomiting noises to every book I do from now on, just for you.
Right.
Why is Lucy vomiting right there? That's not written in the book. Shh, just go with it. She just
She'll
puts
know.
it in every book. Every book.
That's your thing.
That's her thing. Just go with it.
That's good.
Sorry about that.
That was funny.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good time. We had a lot of fun recording that one.
That's awesome.
Was that so? You've done dark romance before. It was that you'd already kind of been in it, and so you already were very comfortable with the dark romance side of things whenever you got that one.
Yeah, I do a fair amount of dark romance. Like I said, I really do small town sweet to dark and twisty, but I do get some solid dark and twisties. Partly because I have yet to meet a trigger warning that has scared me off. I'm one of those narrators where they're like, here's what's in the book, and I'm like, all right, I see no problems with this. So I do tend to get some dark books because producers and authors know that I'm okay with doing them, and that's just, I feel like those stories, like there's a story for everyone, right? There's a version of this that like really works for everyone. Some people really want closed door romance, and I fully respect that. And some people, whatever they're working through or whatever gets them going, I'm like, okay. So I have done dark for a while before that book as well. They cast me. I just got lucky. I don't know. Yeah, lucky.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just get lucky.
They're like, Lucy loves this stuff. Let's just send it to Lucy. Lucy's got it. But so I have a question on that. You were raised in a very religious home, correct?
I definitely was, yeah.
How was that going into like, okay, now I'm getting this really dark stuff. Now I'm getting this very, did it challenge your belief systems, or, was your belief systems just different already?
I definitely was that. I was that rebellious kid. I at about 13, I think my parents would tell you that I was tough. I was probably tough on them. I'll be honest. There was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of, I had a lot of questions in terms of kind of the religion I grew up in, and I never felt like the answers really worked for me. And so I basically left the religion as soon as I left home at 18. And I definitely, as a human, just and kind of was like, I got to try everything. I got to figure out who the fuck I am in the world. I'm going to get out there and do things that are probably questionable, and I'll be lucky to be alive in the morning. And I definitely did those things, both in New York and even in LA when I got there. So I had dipped my toes into a lot of things in life, just in general. And then in dark romance, I think most of that content is in there as a way to explore either how a character got to the place that they are. It's a backstory and kind of what they're carrying around with them and what they're trying to work through finding a new romance, or it's in there, as so many things are in these romance novels, as just a different way to show how you can really have intimacy and trust. And so some people really don't like that content and don't want to deal with it, and I totally get that and respect that. But I think for me, it's always just like, it's a different way to explore how characters connect and how you can be intimate or trust, or how you get through things that have made that difficult for you and find a way to love again. So
I like that. That is, I love whenever kids start to question the world and then they realize that, the answers aren't satisfactory, they're like, I'm going to go find some fucking answers. I'm going to go make this world show me the limits, and let's just test everything.
yeah, I did that. I did a lot of testing.
I say I love that, but my daughter's is getting to, an older age, and she's starting to show, and I'm gonna retract that, I'm sure, here pretty soon, to where I'm be like, fuck, she's me all over again.
I think it's so hard on the parents, but I do think, as long as people survive it all, makes for really interesting adults. Like, you'll probably have a real rough time of it, and then she'll come back at some point and you'll be like, oh man, you're an amazing human. It took us some battles to get here, but you're an amazing human with strong opinions.
Is that something your parents have told you?
Yeah, they have. I mean, we definitely have had our many differences over the years, but I think as I've aged and come back around and they can see me for who I really am, there's a level of respect in that and growth in that. And they do trust me about a lot of different things now. And I've always been that kid. I mean, even at 18, I was like, I will never lie to you. So if you don't want to know the answer to a question, just don't ask it. And that's kind of where we've lived our whole life. So yeah, it has. I definitely was not easy in my teenage years. I was not easy on my parents.
I can see that though. Like my kids, my kids are all adults, from 25 to 30.
Mm-hmm.
And we've definitely gone through those where it's just like, I love my kid. I love my kid.
Don't kill my kid. Don't kill my kid. I love my kid.
But now, like I would say we all have a very good relationship. Like we're friends and, we respect each other for the most part. I mean, there's still some growing pains there, but, as they get older, because 20s still 20s, they don't know a lot. But I think it's so important. And kudos to your parents to at least have that open mind. A lot of parents don't have open minds and, aren't willing to allow some of those rigid things that they grew up in, because that's what we did grow up with that.
Yeah.
To, kind of soften the walls a little bit. Like there might be another way to do something. And that's okay.
I've always been impressed that my parents didn't just kick me out, cut me off, or like excommunicate me entirely. So they very well could have. I grew up in a very religious family in a very religious town with a family who's been this religion for generations. So kudos to them for sure. For just
100%
keeping the door open, keeping the conversations going, and getting through it with their rebellious, crazy teenage daughter.
I also feel like you see them too. You see them in a way of like accepting that's who they are, accepting that they probably won't change, and then just realizing like that's their normal, that's their boundaries, that's how they live, and that's okay too. And I'm going to live on this other side of the tracks.
Yeah. And figuring out when you get together, like how do those things all live in the same place for a week or two at a time, and try to give everybody that respect to continue living as they live with kindness and love. Yeah.
I mean, and I feel like you probably developed that naturally with like, I want people to give me that because I'm doing, all this crazy shit. So let me be. And you learn that empathy and that understanding of other people and how they live their life because that's something that, yeah, I want that too. I want people to give me that as well.
And I think as we become adults, there is some moment where you all realize like, oh, my parents are just people. They were making shit up as they went. Nobody knows what they're doing. Like you do hit some level in your adult life where you're like, oh no, nobody knows. No, we're all making this up. Oh, and then there's this whole other level of grace for these people who raised you in a very specific way. As I get older, there is this other level of grace where I'm like, oh, they did a really great job and they were just doing the best they could. And that's all any of us are doing, the best we can, ideally. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 100%. Go ahead, Cathy.
No, because mine's going to be a little bit drawn out. So go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, you mentioned that, stories are kind of like your lifeline and they keep you going. What was there one specific story that changed your life or had the biggest impact on you?
Oh man, I have read so many books in my life. I don't even know where to start with that. Honestly, I mean, I read The Thornbirds at least 15 times in my teens. Probably has a lot to do with my developmental stages. I do return to old Roman and Greek stuff regularly. That was what I did in college. So I revisit the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid. I like old Greek mythology. I think there's a lot of lessons always to be learned from mythology. So I return to those kind of things, and Marcus Aurelius's Meditations I always return to as kind of a philosophical guide through life. It's a nice one to come back to every few years and be like, oh, well, I react to that differently now. That's interesting. That's who I am. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one. Like one book that's a tough one. Do you have one? Do you have a book that's like the book?
I'm going to be honest, it changes. It changes, as I grow, kind of like you said, with the let's reread something and it hits different. But I will notice that, my favorite book a couple years ago isn't my favorite book now, and it's not the most impactful book now. And right now, the Mistborn series completely changed the way that I look at, leadership and religion. And it's not a religious book. There's just religious fiction figures in the book, and the way that they deal with religion and the way that they move through it. I love those books that make you question your own beliefs, and then like you the leadership aspect in that book where the guy has to make these really hard decisions and everyone's like upset with him because of these really hard decisions, but kind of like parents, he's just doing the best he can and trying to minimize like the destruction that's going to happen from his actions. And it's like, fuck, could I do that as a leader? Could I do what that it takes to try to encompass as many as people as you can, but you're still letting people fall through the cracks? And it's like, yeah, that's the most impactful book for me right now. But it's going to change in a couple years.
Mistborn series? What's it called? Okay,
Yep.
I want to write.
Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, it's a Sanderson book. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
I will check that out. That sounds really fascinating. I'm in. Sold.
Yeah. Yeah. I always recommend that book right now. That's the top of my list.
Awesome. You, Cathy, do you have a book that's like your book?
I think mine is going to be the first series that really got me into narrated books, into narration. The audiobooks I just read before, but Lexi C. Foss wrote the Immortal Curse series.
Okay.
And it's in audio. And Cal Williams is like one of the main male narrators in that. And I just loved that series. And it just is kind of like my comfort series. And I don't even really know why, but it's just like anytime if I'm just like, I really don't know what, like, what do I want to read? Or if I'm on a road trip, I always go back to that one. And I think it's just because it was just my first one into audiobooks, and I just loved it so much.
Yeah. Well, there are things that are the comfort reads or the comfort listens for sure, right? You're like, yeah. It doesn't, maybe, I don't know if it's like life changing in the philosophy sense or something, but it does puts you back in a centered space or whatever that comfort thing that you're looking for is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There's one other rom-com that is like on the other end of the other end of the spectrum. It's probably one of my favorites is The Billionaire is Back. And that's it's small town billionaire, love story. And was it Kaylee? Yeah, Kaylee and Kaylee Loring and Connor Crace co-wrote it.
Nice.
And then he narrated it along with, I can't remember who, it might have been Emma, I'm not sure. But it was just so funny. It was just, and because I come from a small town, like that was just, it's hilarious. But also the spice was spicing, and it was just so, like, the whole thing was so good.
Nice.
Like, it's probably one of my favorites. So if I need like a palate cleanser or a book that I don't really have to pay attention to enjoy it, I will go back to that one.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, okay, so I have a question for you, and I don't think I've ever asked an author this or a narrator this, so I'm very curious. As an author, is there anything that you wish that we knew about, like, writing that then turns into audio?
This ain't your normal podcast, Lucy.
That's an interesting question, because I always feel like it's my job as a narrator every time I'm working on a new author's writing is to like figure out their particular style and how they write and try to figure out the right tone and the right pacing and the right all of that. So I always feel like it's my job as the narrator is to just figure out how this author works and how things flow and how they tell the story. So I just don't feel like I don't know if I get to give that note. That's crazy.
You're like, no, keep doing what you're doing.
That is like what I love is finding authors who have their own little like unique voices and their own way into things and their own way of doing things. I think that's incredible. from a very practical perspective, it is so helpful if I'm doing a long series, knowing from the get-go if there's, like, hey, that dude who has one line over there, he's going to have book 4. That is like such a helpful note. So I don't give somebody some crazy fucking voice, and then I'm like, oh, you're the lead. Okay, let me just work that one out. Let me get on that. Those kind of things are helpful.
Good.
Certainly, I have been surprised in like a series on book 4, and I'm like, oh, they're Irish, and you're just telling me they're Irish in book 4. That would have been helpful to know in book 1. And now what do I do? So those are like very, very practical things that narrators, it's very helpful for us if we're working on like a series. And for fantasy series, I'm like, if you have a preference about how you want all these crazy things you've made up said, please let me know, because otherwise I'm going to make them up. And I'm just going to have a good time with that and build my own little verbal world over here. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. I really like figuring out an author's voice. I feel like every author has their own voice, and that's part of the joy of being a narrator, is going, okay, what's my in? Where's their sweet spot? Where do they land?
If an author came to you and said, your favorite author, whoever that is, I won't ask you to name that, came to you and said, I'm going to write a book for you.
For me.
What would that look like? For you to narrate.
Yeah.
For you, like everything, like whatever. You tell me, what does this look like?
It's going to have some comedy, for sure. Doesn't mean it can't be like a dramatic or whatever book, but it's got to have some kind of comedy in it. I definitely am going to request magical creatures of some kind.
Oh, fuck yes. I agree.
I love
100%.
voicing. Like, I'm like, give me the brownies, the talking monkeys, the like, what, all the magical creatures, for sure, because it's so fun to voice those kind of things. And I definitely, I don't know, I love a good contemporary rom-com or whatever, but I also really I do love fantasy worlds. I do love, because I grew up reading them, and I'm so happy to jump into someone who is just building a space operatic world or a fantasy world, and like, let's go there. Let's go to a place that doesn't fully exist and have fun building it together. I love doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think you might have another person to hire you next year whenever I start. As you're naming stuff off, I'm like, okay, check. Okay, check. Oh my God, I'm gonna, next year's when I'm publishing. Let's do this thing.
Magical creatures and some crazy languages and accents and shit.
I love it. Yeah. Your vibe is great. Anyone who's listening to this who's an author right now is probably going to be reaching out to you as well. So I'm first, okay?
You're top of the list. Top of the list. Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you producing? You can produce, right?
What was that?
Yeah, we got the whole team here.
Right?
100%. Yeah. I'm
the whole team.
Because you won't have to worry with me doing it. You don't have to worry about like wondering what those things are supposed to be pronounced about, because I not only put it in a character and a pronunciation guide written, but I record it for you too. So
see, it's magical. Magical. It's amazing. You can make up all those pronunciations and
I do. And then my word becomes law. No, I'm kidding.
It is kind of fun, right? It is kind of, you're like, this is kind of fun. My word
it is fun.
Law. You're going to say that this way.
You know, I'm 54, and I had not done this before, but J.R. Thorne is probably one of my favorite authors. And last year, I had gotten laid off from my job, and I was in California actually in June of last year, where I'm in California right now at my girl's house. And
she's normally from Florida. That's why there's a big difference.
Yeah. And so I'd gone home, and there was a book con in Cape Canaveral, Canaveral Coast, I don't know, Space Coast Romance, something, whatever. And JR was going to be there, and I said, do you need help? Like, I volunteered just to go out and help her at her booth. Sure. Okay. Because we had like communicated a little bit. So I go out there, and like I have listened to all of her audiobooks. and Lexi's. And so I knew everything about the audiobooks, who the narrators were, what's good about, like everything. And so I could speak to her readers about the audiobooks. And she was like, "You're really good at this." I was like, I mean, I have listened to them.
I'm talking about
And
it's easy to talk about. Yeah.
yeah. And so she messaged me a couple months later and she's like, "I think I have a job for you." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "I want you to manage the production of my next book." And it's called Their Blood Queen. And I was like, yes. But also, I've never done that before. She was like, "All good. I'll teach you." And so it's an 8 narrator cast
Wow.
duet.
Big.
Yeah. And it was so much fun. And it was literally my passion. And at 54, I found my passion. And she encouraged me. She's like, "I can completely see you doing this as a business. While you are forever my audiobook manager, I also encourage you to do."
Yeah.
And so I did. And so it's just a few months ago, I registered my DBA. But, I feel like it's just so awesome to have that kind of passion, and you're never too old to find it.
No, and it's always nice when someone sees something in you and says, "Hey," like I think we've all had those moments in our lives when someone will be like, "Hey, you know what? You'd be really great at this," and you're like, "Shit, I would be." Oh, actually, I really like this. Yeah, I mean, it really is cool when someone sees something that maybe you're not thinking about or paying attention to in that way. It's really
100%.
cool. Congratulations. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I like that you two have the similar aspect of that, of both of you are like, "Let's go this direction," and someone's like, "Hey, what about over there?"
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I feel like I've had a lot of those moments in my life where someone like drops something in my lap and your option is to say no or yeah, I'll give that a go. And I'm such a yeah, I'll give that a go that I've really had a number of things in my life where I'm like, oh, never would have thought of that, but this is amazing. Yeah, I'll give that a go. Yeah. So kudos to you for saying yes and jumping in.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. But it's turned out to be amazing. So, and then I met Randie, and then I don't even know how we met. Do you remember how we met? In a post somewhere,
I
I
think it was
think.
a post on Facebook. I was like, "Hey, I have this idea for this podcast. Does anyone want to help me with it?" And Cathy's like, "Fuck yeah, let's do this thing." And that's kind of all she wrote.
Very cool. Again, though, like you just jumped in. See, you're a jumper too. Yeah. You're like, yeah, it'll be fine.
Let's do
Put
it.
out. It's great.
I think that's the best way to live sometimes. Like my husband, it drives him nuts. He's like, "I need to know how it's going to end." And I'm like, "That ruins it. Let's just fucking do it."
Yeah. No, I think a lot of life is like just jumping and being. I mean, how else do you start a new business or try something new? You don't know if it's going to work.
You don't.
You don't know what the ending is going to be. You just don't. So you have to jump and have like a leap of faith. And then if you have to change course on the way down, you change course on the way down, and that's okay. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned to grow wings midway.
Yep,
So
that's exactly right. You jump and then you're like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Either I'm gonna grow wings, or Gandalf is gonna call those eagle thingies to come like catch me.
There's gonna be like a magical thing at the bottom that I'd land on. It's gonna be soft and cushy, full of feathers. It's gonna be great.
Or it's gonna be like Emperor's New Groove, where two of us just get stuck in this fucking canyon, and he's like, "I'm really glad you're not a big fat guy." As they're trying to get back out of it. If none of you have seen that, I apologize.
No,
I
I
have kids.
haven't seen it. Anybody?
Yeah, I know. That was my excuse. I watch that shit all by myself all the time. So 400 books, Lucy. Wow, that's a phenomenal achievement.
It's a lot of books. It's a lot of books, but I don't mind it.
Is there like, if anyone was interested in getting to know you as a narrator and hear your work, is there a place that they should start, or do you have a suggestion, or are you just kind of like jump in?
Jump in. No, I think Butcher and Blackbird is a good place to start if you don't mind a little darkness with your rom-com. I think a lot of people have really responded to a book that I did a while ago now called Love in the Wild with Shane East. That's a Tarzan retelling, and for some reason it just really has found some legs, and I think it's a really fun listen in terms of accents, and she did like a really creative retelling. There's an entire chapter that's from a gorilla's point of view. Like it's a great book. Really, really fun. Emma Castle. Where else would be fun to start? I'm trying to think of things that are going to be maybe not so dark.
Not so deep end.
But also, yeah, mention some dark. There's a lot of dark romance girlies out there.
There's some really dark romance girlies. I most recently Rook and Rebel came out that was on the darker side. I did a book recently called The Dark Before Light. That's an L.M. Holleran book. That's a contemporary romance with a female dom that definitely feels it's beautifully written book, and feels kind of more adult, I guess. They're like a little bit older. There's like a lot of therapy and figuring your own shit out and all of that going on, which I really appreciated.
What was the name of that one again?
The Dark Before Light, with I believe, Irish Connor Crace, I want to say, in that one.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Oh my God. Irish Connor Crace.
Can't be mad at that, can you? Can you be mad at it?
Cannot at all. No.
Cannot. So I think those are probably some good places to jump in, depending on what you're looking for, what you're in the mood for. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Perfect. All right. My TBR never gets smaller from these episodes. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you can kind of spotlight? I know it's very hard to bring up some things as a narrator, but is there anything that you would like to?
Trying to think about... Oh, God. I almost spilled water all over my laptop, guys. I just spilled it on my lap instead. Oh no. Totally fine. I'm trying to think of what I'm allowed to talk about.
I know, it's so tricky for you guys.
I know. I'm like, I do have I have an, let's see, how do they describe these? Sapphic. I'm gonna go with Sapphic. The Sapphic romance coming up with Rose Diaro, which is I'm excited about, called Remnants, because I don't often get female, and I love them. They're so fun. So that's coming up soon. Doing a fun little third season of a series called Naughty and Nice, which is like it's you follow all the different characters, and each of them get a naughty chapter and kind of a nice chapter, and in the book, and we're going into season 3 on that, which I'm very excited about, and that also gives me some FF, which is delightful, delightful and very hot in the naughty scenes. What else do I have coming up? I have a British biker, like a British biker club coming up. First book is called Stolen. There'll be 3 in that series, and it's a dark ride, y'all. But there's some sass, and there's some funniness, and there's a lot of accents, and a lot of men on motorcycles. So,
cannot go wrong with that.
Go wrong with that.
That's perfect. I think that's great. Everyone, if we go too much further, everyone's going to be like, this is my TBR. Okay, you guys are going to have to start funding my book funds, because like we're so bad at that on this show, but that's what they come here for me, so.
I would, my to be read list is always like epic, and it doesn't.
Yeah, but you kind of do get people to buy books for you. Just a little bit.
I do. I get the copy that I'm narrating from, but all the ones that I'm like, I just want to read that. Also, I have this, library that just it never gets shorter. Never.
How do you fit? I know we're fixing to wrap things up, but I guess final question here: how do you fit downtime in all of this, reading? And do you kind of try to read separate genre than what you're narrating?
I definitely get to read for fun a lot less than I used to, because so much of my time is prepping upcoming books or narrating books. But I do try to make sure that every night I'm reading a book that's I just want to read for fun. So I do try to give myself like a good 30 minutes a night at least, where I'm reading a book that is just for me. And that can be all over the place. Right now I'm reading a nonfiction book about Hollywood disaster fiasco movies. So a good time. I'm really enjoying it. And then I usually have an audiobook going, which I get to listen to when I'm driving or cleaning or whatever else. And those I pick. Sometimes it's a book I've heard of that I think is interesting. Sometimes it's a narrator that I want to hear, that I've, a colleague of mine that I've not heard before. it can kind of be all over the place in terms of like why I pick what I'm listening to. But yeah, I usually have an audiobook going, a book for myself going, and then whatever I'm working on at any given time.
Fantastic. I love that you still find time for it.
I think, yeah, you kind of have to, right? I don't know. I love books.
Yeah. Yeah. Authors who tell me that they can't read while they're writing, I'm like, what? I can't not read while I'm sleeping. Like, no, I'm just kidding. But I love reading. Like, I couldn't walk away from it just to write.
Yeah, no, I definitely always find time to read for myself. So, just not as much.
Yeah, right. I know. But still, like, I think me writing, and it's very different for you narrating, but me writing, I get to make up the story I want to read. And then you get to have colleagues who give you stories to experience and jump into and bring to life.
Yeah. It's awesome.
We're filling that cup one way or another, damn it.
Right?
Where can our listeners go to follow you with, what you're doing? Is there a place on social media for them? And then where can they find all of your books? I imagine there's probably a one-stop shop for that.
You can find me on Instagram at AKA Lucy Rivers. You can find me on Facebook, although I'm not as active as I should. There is a Lucy Rivers Facebook group, also Lucy's Libertines, should you want to join that and talk about books and cocktails and the chaos that we get up to. We also do that. And I think the easiest place still is to just go to Audible and search my name and find my entire library. There are many other places to find audiobooks, and you should not only use Audible, but that is, I think, probably the easiest.
Search it there and go buy it somewhere else.
I am going to jump in and say Chirp, because I find
Chirp
also.
Okay. Does Chirp have?
Because I always can use Chirp in conjunction with Audible, because sometimes you can get audiobooks for less than $5 on Chirp.
And you can
so you just have
books through your library for free. Like, there are definitely ways to access books if you are on a budget. For sure. And I know a lot of people now have library cards in like 12 different places just so they can have audio libraries, and that is awesome.
I didn't know you could do that. And then when I found it, I was like, okay, which ones can I do that I don't have to go and like sign up for in person? And I'm signing up for all these books, and now I get like all these emails and newsletters from like Nevada State Library, and like
it's awesome. I mean, we should be using our libraries. I think
absolutely
access is key. So I think that's awesome.
Yep.
It is.
Yep. All right. Well, Lucy, you were fantastic. This was such a good conversation. I feel so honored to meet the Butcher and Blackbird narrator. And I know that Cathy is so excited to meet you and have you on here as well.
Thank you for having me. I always love having conversations. We got into some stuff I don't think I've ever talked about like on a podcast before. So y'all got some weird and dark and deep stuff,
That is our goal on this podcast. We're not here just to talk about the books. We want to know the people.
Yeah. Well, we got into that today. And it was good to get to know you guys a little bit and what you listen to and read. And I'm excited to check out some of your fantasy.
All right, Lucy. Thank you so much for being on the show. Guys, make sure you go follow Lucy. Go check out her books and all the ones that we've listed. Check them out. If you have, make sure you give them a review. You don't have to leave the long, beautiful review with all of the notations. Even just a 5-star, 4-star, whatever you want to leave. We know that stacks up. Just remember that helps authors and narrators so much by just quickly reviewing.
Say something, Lucy.
I was just agreeing with that wholeheartedly. Reviews help authors, reviews help narrators, and if you don't have the time, just stars even help. It's awesome.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of L3. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Hey, guys. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemmon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.